Hello guys, in this video tutorial we are going to discuss about the CSS power. The power of external CSS. The power of internal CSS and the power of inline CSS. To explain this with example, I would like to create a file here. In this file I'm going to call it power.html. In this power now I'll write my HTML version 5. Then I'll call it here CSS Power. So let me just write a simple tag that I will use to explain this. Let me write tag a div tag. I say this explain the power in the 3 implementation of CSS. Right? What do I want to do? I will start by explaining the external CSS. The power in external CSS is that external CSS, you can write it once and use it in all your web pages, in all your file. Once you include it here, you use it here. Once you link it here, you use it there. Once you link it here, you use it there. This is for external CSS. But for internal, you can only write the code at the head here and use it only in this page. Only. But for inline, you only write it in the tag and use it only in this tag. You see that external has power in terms of scalability. You can use it in so many places. Internal comes second. You can use it throughout that page that you created, whereby inline is only for that particular tag. But wherever there is an external and internal, computer will choose internal to external. And when there is an internal and inline, computer will choose inline to internal. So anywhere we do an inline CSS, that code must show before talking about the inline, then goes to, before talking about the internal, then goes to external. Let me just explain what I'm trying to say with an example. Let me create, first of all, create an external CSS here. Inside this CSS folder, I want to create an external CSS. Let me call it power.css. So inside this CSS now, I want to start with using a class selector. Let me call this class selector nav. Then use my curly bracket and start making declaration. First of all, I want this thing to use a font size of 20 ps. And use a color of green yellow. Then use a background color of let me say indigo. A background color of indigo. Then make use of a padding. What will be the name of this? Let's say the padding is 15 ps. This is for external CSS. Let me close all this stuff here so that I only have what I'm working on, what I'm using to explain. Let me still close this. First of all, I have to link it here and use it. Let me link it in the head, between the head tag, whether here or here, doesn't matter. You link it by using this link tag, link. Then the reference is style CSS. Then you start putting your file here, which is css/power.css. Right? That is inside the CSS folder. We have the power.css. And in this power.css, the name of this thing is nav. The name of the selector. So we come here and says class is equals to nav. Okay, let me run this code now. and see whether this will be implemented, and we know of course it will be implemented. Okay, let me review in Explorer Power. Okay, you see that this thing is being implemented, right? Okay, now what about in a situation whereby we write an internal CSS? We use style for internal CSS like this. Then we start writing our selector and making use of selectors. Okay, here let me use an ID selector. Let me call this ID selector int, right? Okay, let me make a declaration. Let me make a declaration similar to what I did here. Let me say this internal, I am going to use a font size. Okay, this time around a font size of 33 ps. Okay, this has a font size, so I want that one to have a font size. I want to see which one has more power. Okay, I want to make use of color. The color here is green yellow, but here I will make the use of color white. Okay, let me make the use of color brown. Okay, color brown. Then this one equally have background color indigo. Okay, let me make a use of background color here, gold. Okay, background color gold. Okay, here is making use of padding. Let me equally make use of padding 25 ps. Okay, padding 25 ps. Okay, so I want to implement it in this the same tag. Okay, this is an ID, so I will write my ID here and says int. Okay, now look at what will happen. Remember, this one is using the external CSS, but since I have implemented the internal, it will replace the external with internal. It will override this with this because this is internal. So internal has more power than external. So in internal is that maybe you are using this external for all your pages and you come to this particular page, notice that this external is not suitable. You can now write an internal, okay, implement it to override it. Okay, let's test this code. You can see that once we run this code, the font size will increase from 22, it will now increase to 23, and the color will change from green yellow to brown. The background color will change from indigo to gold, and the padding will increase. Remember, the padding before is 15, the padding is going to increase to 25. Okay, let's refresh this code. Do you notice that internal have replaced the external because internal has more power? Okay, internal has more power. So, but if we remove this background color like this, since there is no background color for internal, external background color now will be used. You understand what I'm trying to say? Since there is no background color in internal, external background color now will be used. Remember, external background color is indigo. Okay, now it doesn't have the yellow or gold background color. Indigo background color now will be used. Have you seen it now? So that's how it works. Okay, external can only work if that declaration is not made in internal. I'm talking about when you are using internal and external in the same tag, and we have the same, just similar stuff in both of them. This one will work. It is only when we don't have background color to now check whether this one have. If this one have, it will use it. If this one doesn't have, it will not even use background color at all because none of the CSS has a background color declaration. Okay, you can now see that internal has more power than external. What about inline? Inline has more power than internal because here I'm focusing on this. So whatever thing I write will override the one of inline and override the one of external. So when you talk about power, inline has more power, followed by internal, then followed by external. But when you talk about usability, external has higher power. You can use it in all the page, and then internal follows because you can use it internal in all this particular file. Then you can use inline in a particular tag. So this is their power and where their benefit comes in. Okay, let us just test this here. What I want to do now is to change the color to white here. Okay, let me see. Color. Okay, remember we use the style, we use the style attribute like this. We now make our declaration inside this style. I say color is white. Okay, remember the color here is green yellow, and this guy has overwrite it with brown. Now I make it on inline. Now inline own will come. Inline own will override this one because inline has more power, but inline doesn't have padding, so this padding for internal will be used. Inline doesn't have font size, so this font size for internal will be used as well. But if I put font size here, it will replace this. But everything I did here that is here, this one in inline will replace the one of internal because inline has more power than internal. Okay, let me refresh this now. You see that we now have the font color of white because the inline has more power than the one of internal. Okay, I can say let the font size now be 15. Okay, you can see that this font size now will replace this font size. You can see that if I refresh this, the font size will reduce using the 15 ps. You can see the one that we just declared here. Okay, I think I have explained external CSS power, internal CSS power, and inline CSS power. So you now know how they work, when to use which one to use, and all that. So normally the way I normally do my stuff is that I write with external, link it in all my pages. Any page I discover that this external doesn't suit in, I can use my internal to replace them. Maybe I notice that the background color here doesn't suit in on this particular file. I'll now write an internal that will replace it, or I will write an inline that will replace it, just like that. Okay guys, thank you.